Why do easy green card cases get denied? Hi, I'm Jim Hacking, immigration lawyer practicing law throughout the United States out of our offices in St. Louis, Missouri, San Diego, California, and Washington, D.C. In today's video, we're going to talk about what the difference is between easy cases and hard cases, and then we're going to talk about why so-called even easy cases do get denied at USCIS. So I've been practicing immigration law for quite some time now, and I think that I've gotten pretty good at seeing which cases are relatively straightforward and those which are more complex, more complicated, that are a little bit more messy. And that's how I think about cases. I don't think about cases being easy or hard, but a lot of the people that call our Immigration Answer Show do talk about the fact that they think they have an easy case. And I want to disabuse you of that. I don't think there's any such thing as an easy case. Every case is a little bit messy. Every case has its own ups and downs, its own pluses and minuses. Now, there are some, like I said, that are more straightforward, but you should not fool yourself into thinking that you have an easy case. That being said, what does go into my analysis? What do I think about when I try to figure out if a case is straightforward? Well, things like this. Number one, is the beneficiary, the foreign national, are they in status or out of status? Did they enter with inspection or did they enter without inspection? That is, did they have a visa and meet with a customs official, or did they enter the United States through a sneaky way, through an illegal way? One big factor is whether the couple has a long history together. Have they been together for a long time, or did they get married relatively quickly? The next question is this everyone's first marriage? If there have been multiple marriages before, or even prior immigration filings based on marriage before, that would make the case less easy. The next factor that I want to know about is whether anybody has any crimes. And we don't have to look just at the crimes of the foreign national, but these days with the Adam Walsh Act, we also need to look at whether or not the U.S. citizen has committed any crimes. And we need to dig deep to see if any of these crimes are going to make the case harder to get approved. But if someone has no crimes, that's something that would tend to make the case more straightforward and quote-unquote easy. Now, sadly, there's one other factor that goes into whether or not a case is deemed straightforward or easy. And I hate to say this, I hate to even bring it up, but it's undeniably true. And anyone who says that it isn't is pulling your leg. And that is this. White people have an easier time at immigration than non-white people. And I say that as a white dude. I don't say that proudly. I say that sadly. It bums me out that a federal agency would treat people differently based on their race. But the undeniable truth is that if people are from Europe, if they are white, if they are both Caucasian, it's much more likely that the case is going to go quickly and easily. I don't think that's fair. I think it's fundamentally unfair. I think it's borderline illegal. I think someone should do about it. But in my analysis, when I, the lawyer, am trying to figure out whether or not this is a straightforward case or not, I do have to admit, sadly, that people from Canada, people from Australia, people from Scandinavia, people from England have an easier time than do Africans or people from South America or Central America. It sucks. It sucks, but that's undeniably true. Now, let's contrast easy cases with what I would call more complicated or hard cases. Of course, one of those would be where the beneficiary entered without inspection. They're going to need a whole lot more work. That case is going to take more time. They're most likely going to need a waiver. They're going to have to go overseas and meet with a consular official to get their visa. They're going to have to show hardship. So if the beneficiary is entered without inspection, that's definitely a harder case. Another aspect that can make the case harder is if the beneficiary is out of status. That is, if they've been in the United States for a really long time and have lacked legal permission to be here for many years. That's number one on the fraud indicator list. That's one of the things that USCIS looks for. So if the beneficiary is out of status, that's something that's going to make the case, quote unquote, harder. The next factor in whether or not your case is easy or hard is how long you've been together. When the couple has been together for a very short time, that causes lots of problems. Number one, like I said earlier, it's high on the fraud list, and that's something that the officer is going to know and be cognizant of. But the other thing is that there's just not going to be a lot of evidence. If you haven't been married that long, or if you haven't even known each other that long, you're going to have, by definition, a whole lot less evidence than people who have been together for a long time. Now, we do have people who've been together for a while and say, well, we don't like to take pictures, or we're not that kind of a couple. Yeah, that's wrong. Yeah, don't do that. But generally, the longer you are together, the more evidence you're going to have, and that's going to make your case easier to prove. So if you don't have that, that's a harder case. USCIS is also all over people who have criminal backgrounds. So if the U.S. citizen has some kind of crime or criminal history or criminal past, that's something that they're going to consider in asking themselves, well, could this person have gotten married just to get the foreign national and immigration benefit and gotten paid for it, i.e. committed immigration fraud. I guess they figure if you've committed other crimes as a U.S. citizen, it's likely that you'd be willing to commit a crime again. And of course, with the foreign national, they might have overall problems that make them inadmissible because of their criminal past. And so that's another thing. Crimes can make the case much, much harder. These days, one of the biggest factors that's going to make your case harder is if you have multiple marriages. So they don't like it when the U.S. citizen has been married many times before, or in fact, they don't even like it if the U.S. citizen has had children out of wedlock with other people. They just sort of look down on those people. They think that they're more likely to engage in immigration fraud. And I'm not saying that it's fair. I'm just saying that's what happens. And it's really an unfortunate situation, but that's something that's going to make your case harder. If there's a long, complicated history of relationships with either the U.S. citizen or the foreign national in their past, that's definitely something that's going to make the case harder. This is especially true if the foreign national had someone apply for an immigration benefit for them in the past. Those old cases can come back to haunt you, and we've talked about that in many other videos. Then, of course, the last factor that we see causing complications in cases is if the couple come from different races or different backgrounds, different socioeconomic backgrounds. If there's not a lot of logic behind the couple's relationship, that's going to be a head scratcher for the officer and give them pause. If the couple, like say, both come from the same country or the same religious background or the same history, those kinds of things make it easier. But if you're from different backgrounds, that's going to be harder. And I've seen officers who really get a little bit bent out of shape when you're talking about people of mixed race relationships. It's mind-boggling to me in 2022 that that's true, but it's actually a fact. All right, so you can see the difference between what are facially easy cases versus cases that are probably a little bit harder. And you might even understand why USCIS would be a little bit more interested and scrutinize a little bit more heavily those quote-unquote hard cases. But what about the easy cases? Jim, what roadblocks or obstacles have you seen USCIS throw up when it comes to the easy cases? And that's the point of this video. This all occurred to me because a caller recently to the Immigration Answer Show was convinced, she was convinced that she had an easy case and that she did not need an immigration lawyer. Now listen, when I'm having these conversations, it's not with the idea that I'm going to ask you to hire me as your lawyer. We have plenty of cases. We literally get thousands of cases a year. We don't need one more case. I'm giving you this data, this information, so that you can make the best decision. But I'm not going to let someone call the show and say that they have an easy case. And this lady definitely didn't have an easy case. She kept saying she had an easy case. She actually called the show twice. And every time she called, there were more details that made the case harder, made the case more complicated. So while she was insistent that she had an easy case, she did not. And so I don't want you to fall into that trap. I don't want you to lie to yourself or blindside yourself that the fact that you think you have an easy case and you don't, because you don't. You might have a straightforward case, but you definitely don't have an easy case, and you need to think that through. This is especially true when you understand USCIS's mindset. USCIS's mindset is that every case is fake. Every case is fraudulent. Everybody's lying to me. That person sitting across the table from me is a effing liar, and I'm going to do everything I can to keep them from getting their immigration benefit. That's what's been drilled into their head for the last 4 or 5 years, that everyone's a liar, that every case is fake, and that even if it's not fake, we need to go find it. So they're definitely assuming that your case is not easy and straightforward. So how do they approach it? How do they come after you when they think that your case is one that might be approvable, but they don't want to approve it? Well, they have lots of tricks in their bags. These examples I'm about to give you are based on real-world cases, real cases that I've seen, denial notices that I've seen, people that have called the show. These are people that have hired us after a denial, and these are all things that have really happened. One thing that happens a whole lot more than you might think is that USCIS sends a mail or a request for evidence or a notice of intent to deny to somebody's address, and they send it to the wrong address. The couple, of course, never replies because they never received it, and the first they learn of it is that their case has been denied because they didn't respond on time to a notice of intent to deny or to a request for evidence. This is a real thing that happens, and this is a real thing that can happen on easy cases. The next way that USCIS sets people up for failure is by pushing them back and pushing them around on their affidavit of support. Of course, any foreign national that wants to get a green card has to show that the U.S. citizen is going to sponsor them, that they're not going to become a public charge, and that they're going to be able to take care of themselves financially. A lot of times you have to get a co-sponsor. But one of the ways that USCIS really puts a roadblock up for people getting their green card is by pushing back on the affidavit of support. And again, they might send a request for more evidence, or they might just say, you didn't provide the right forms, or you didn't fill out the forms correctly, or you didn't provide enough evidence. And they do deny cases, even so-called easy cases, because the couple didn't know how to fill out their affidavit of support correctly and to provide the right evidence. Another favorite trick of USCIS when it comes to denying so-called easy green card cases is to go out and interview neighbors and landlords. They like to go out and make a stink. They like to find evidence of neighbors who say, well, I never see that dude or that lady coming into the apartment. I never see them around. I never see them doing anything together. Of course, these people probably have no real relationship with the people that are applying, and this evidence is hearsay, and it's really, really thin. But USCIS loves to seize upon that and to use that to hit people over the head with, and to say, oh, your relationship must not be real because the landlord didn't see him, even though perhaps he works late at night or whatever. So this is another trick of theirs that they like to use. Another way to deny a straightforward or easy immigration case would be for USCIS to really browbeat the couple, to really work them over at the interview. And sometimes the beneficiary and the U.S. citizen don't do a good job of preparing, so they sort of set themselves up for this. But there are officers who have made a career out of really beating people up, and that's true whether it's a straightforward case or a hard case, and they're very good at it. And they can make people who are in a real relationship in a so-called easy case look bad, look like liars. And then, of course, the favorite trick to do that is by conducting a Stokes interview. A Stokes interview is when they separate the spouses and they bring them in one at a time, ask them lots of questions to see if there are matches or inconsistencies. I've said many times that my wife and I have been married over 20 years, and if you brought her in and I in and asked us questions about things we did 3 months ago, there would definitely be inconsistencies, even though the fact that we've lived together every single day for the last 3 years, right? So the idea that newlywed couples or people that haven't lived together all that long might make statements that are somewhat inconsistent with each other when it comes to the facts of the life of the day, that's something that doesn't seem fair to me, and it is a trick that they use to hit people over the head, both straightforward and hard cases. And the most evil trick of all, the one that drives me crazy the most, but it is undeniably true, is USCIS will sit on a case and root for the couple to get divorced. They will wait and wait and wait. Of course, if you can't get your green card, that's stressful. And if you have an interview that doesn't go so well, that's stressful. And USCIS loves to try to intimidate the U.S. citizen. So if all those things happen, you get into a situation where the couple waits and waits and waits, and USCIS knows that they're having them wait, and the pressure of the wait itself puts force on the relationship that makes it crumble. And we've seen cases where couples divorced after having waited 2, 3, or 4 years for the green card. And this is the last way that USCIS really pushes back against so-called easy cases. So I hope this video has done what I intended it to do, which is to educate you on whether or not you do in fact have an easy case, and to make you concerned, and rightly so, about how you're going to get your case approved. These are the things you need to worry about. These are the concerns that you have. And if any of these issues that I've raised ring familiar or sound like something that you need to talk to an immigration lawyer about, you should give us a call, 314-961-8200. Email us, info@hackinglawpractice.com. You can join us in our Facebook group. It's a free Facebook group. There's almost 8,000 members in the group, and it's growing every single day. People are trading information about the immigration offices, about the process, about overseas embassies. It's a great little place that we've really enjoyed having. And then we have our YouTube channel that you should subscribe to. Whenever we make a new video, you'll get an update, and you'll find out that the new topic of the day. If you have any questions, give us a call, and we'll see you next time. Thanks a lot.